Abbema that is joining us tonight to discuss a very hot topic right now, um, which is what is, sorry, it's, excuse me. Oh, hold on. Okay. Sorry, I was having an issue right there. It's about AI for business analysts and how it will enhance strategy, decision making, and innovation. So Patrick is a fantastic person because he has multiple certifications that encompass business analysis and project management. Uh, he has 30 years and more in business transformation and project leadership. And one of his goals is to connect the business with AI and bring it together for sustainable success. Um, but yeah, this is a great topic, and I'm glad we have him here to discuss this because AI is becoming something that is everywhere, and it would be good to hear about how we can connect it. Uh, Patrick, I hand
Fantastic.
it to you.
Travis, thank you very much. I'm going to try to share my screen. I just want to make sure that you can see this. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Yes, yes.
Fantastic. How's that? That work seems to be working for you. So I'll just make sure you get to see all of it. That's perfect. So as Travis said, I mean, I've been doing this for a number of years. I actually am a former president of the IIBA chapter here in Ottawa. I actually started out as a project manager, and I was one of those PMs that keep asking the why. So I decided to get my certification in business analysis. So I'm also a CBAP. Recently, I've just become a certified management consultant. So a number of it's interesting how the journey has proceeded. So what I want to talk about tonight is AI for business analysts. And I know we have a lot of material to cover, so I'm going to jump right into it. And it's really about how we can, as BAs, how we can improve our position and ask the right questions. So, the first thing we ask ourselves is if we want to have better results, we need to ask better questions. Basic prompting will only result in basic results, right? Garbage in, garbage out. So if you want better results, ask better questions. Trying to find the link here. I apologize. I was hoping that this would work, but I guess there's having a little trouble. There we go. So what we want to talk about tonight is the AI and business analyst future. We want to talk about how we can use AI to engage stakeholders, engage team members, engage those resources that when we elicit requirements. We also wanted to do some demonstrations on prompt engineering. So I'll give you a quick example of what we're talking about using structured prompt engineering, so that rather than trying to do the basic no context prompts that a lot of people are doing, how do actually we should structure a prompt? There are a number of frameworks to choose from around prompt engineering? So what you do as a BA, one of the challenges I think we have as business analysts is that, and this is coming up quite a bit, is that there's a concern being raised that there's a lack of critical thinking taking place when we use AI. And that's really unfortunate because AI will only amplify your experience, your skills, if used properly. And the challenge we have is that it's very easy to put in a prompt and just cut and paste or copy and paste the result from that prompt into a response to a client or to a leader. And that's really unfortunate because as BAs, I think one of the things we excel at is critical thinking. One of the things we excel at is asking questions, and we need to encourage that. We need to solidify that. We need to fortify that as BAs. So I think prompt engineering, if done correctly, can be a real asset for us. And then we talk about real world applications and some of the ethical issues and challenges we have using AI. So, AI isn't replacing business leaders. Really, my position on this is there to amplify your skill set, amplify your experience, and help not only yourself, but make your organizations make make smart decisions faster going forward. So we'll jump right into it. So AI is clearly a disruptive force, right? It's growing. It's allowing us to make data-informed decisions, strategic decisions. It's not just trying to be operational efficiency. It's not just trying to do more with less or do more in a shorter period of time. I mean that's easy. Those are the easy wins. What we're really looking for is, as BAs, how do I tease out those requirements, the root cause analysis and the fishbone diagram, and understand where are the cluster of problems we're dealing with as BAs. So we need to transition. I mean, and this is my position on this, is that we need to transition from a technical BA or a tactical BA to a strategic BA, and AI can help us do this. And that's why AI literacy is so critical in being a successful BA, but also being a successful, as we navigate over the next 5 years, because we're going to see a lot of changes in the market. There's studies being done saying that 52% of the market, 2 out of 3 jobs are going to get displaced over the next 5 years. When I say displaced, that they're going to be either not necessarily replace overall, but they're gonna require some sort of AI literacy. They're gonna require AI skills. So you're saying that 2 out of 3 individuals that you work with are either using AI right now or will need to use AI over the next 5 years as part of their job function. And so it's critical that as BAs that we are aware of this, and we strategically position ourselves so we can take advantage of this new tool, this new solution that's available to us. And as I said before, as with BAs, as I also teach for a number of universities, but I always tell them, so, if all you have is a hammer in your toolbox, in your BA toolbox, then every problem looks like a nail, and we don't want to be doing that. So that goes without saying. So a couple of things to think of mind is that one of the raffles tonight is actually going to be the AI-driven leader. I don't know if you can see that, but it's by Jeff Woods. Really good book. I'm going to give him a plug there. But one of the things that Jeff mentions in his book is that we are the thought leaders, and AI is the thought partner, right? So treat it like an intern, treat it like an assistant. The assistant tries to impress you, but it's trust but verify. So ultimately, we have to make the decisions. Ultimately, we're accountable for the results, for the responses that come out of this dialogue that takes place between us and the AI. But we are the ones that are decision makers. They are there to help us, and AI is fantastic when it comes to distilling large amounts of information. So when you're dealing with vast amounts of information, whether it's financial or data or legal or contractual, AI is fantastic as a tool to do all the heavy lifting and to synthesize, summarize, distill that information. But ultimately, how we deliver the response, how we deliver the report to our clients and to our team members, it's on us, right, as BAs. So this is where we want to impress upon everybody that we cannot, we're always in the driver's seat. We're not a passenger in this. We always have to be the one driving the discussion, the one leading those discussions with this new tool that's available to us. So with business analysis and AI, how do we take advantage of it? How do we amplify our BA skills? Well, there's several examples, right? There's several use cases we can look at. One would be, do root cause analysis. It's fantastic now, so I can go through a mountain load of data and summarize, distill, identify, prioritize. Where are some of the root causes that could be causing the issue that we're trying to solve. It could also be good for process automation, process information, right? It can also be good for analyzing historical data. I can go back 50 years and identify all the cases that took place, medical data as well. And it's fantastic for identifying, what are some of the optimal process conditions? So, I find that recently or lately, AI has been really good for, as a muse, right? Just there to say, you know what, I'm having a conversation with the AI, whether it's open AI or it's Claude or Gemini or Perplexity. And it's, and depends on the tool and the models you use. Certainly you get different responses, but I find it very interesting to have that dialogue to say, okay, come up with, be a challenger, right? And that's another thing that Jeff Woods talks about is, you know, have a persona that's challenging your perceptions, challenging your bias, challenging your ideas of what to ask for. And it's very enlightening to see that how AI can actually, steer you down a path that you would not normally would we even think about going forward. But what some questions you have? So I find that extremely useful. Another thing to do as BAs is that one of the challenges we're having is how do we start, right? As I mentioned earlier with some of the members here, and saying that we're kind of stuck in this duality, this position where we have data overload on one side, where we're inundated with news about new features of AI, new AIs coming out. It seems like every day there's a new solution, whether it's a presentation solution or it's a financial solution. And the other side, we have data scarcity. So on one side we have data overload, the other side we have data scarcity. And a lot of organizations are kind of stuck in that spot where they say, like, I just don't know where to start. I don't know what questions I should be asking ourselves. And this is actually I got from a Gartner report. I'm happy to share the link after the session if you like. But I find that Gartner's done a wonderful job on identifying how do we start. What are some of the initial activities that organizations should be looking at? And then, of course, the question is, if you're a BA in those activities, how can you help the organization address some of those initial activities? How you can lead some of those initial activities? And right away, from the top list, you can see about defining the vision. Right, that's no different than what we're doing today with as BAs. Or we're trying to prioritize initial use cases. We do this already. Or defining the value in those use cases going forward. What's the benefits realization? So if I'm looking at this with the glass half full, that we can certainly see that as a business analyst who's experienced with facilitating joint application design workshops or doing use cases or doing business canvas solutions, whatever the case is, we have an opportunity as BAs to help organizations help with their AI implementation, right? And really, this is a catalyst, right? AI is a catalyst for change, and with every change, there's opportunities. So I truly believe as BAs, we're actually going to see a lot of opportunities over the next 5 years, and it's how we position ourselves in those opportunities. And if we can give a sense of what that roadmap looks like and help organizations ask the right questions, come up with the right perspective. Because one of the challenges I see right now with a lot of the organizations I'm working with is that they treat AI as a tool, right? And it is a tool, but we don't want to simply just buy a Copilot license and let people run with it, right? We want to be able to, okay, what are your success metrics? What are your expected outcomes? How do we do a feedback loop? How do we ensure that it's successfully implemented and we get value out of that implementation? Because a lot of the problems that I foresee is that a lot of organizations are going to buy into AI because it's like a shiny new bauble, and they want, everybody wants to buy into AI these days, but they don't have a clear strategy on what problems they're trying to solve. They don't have a clear strategy on what are the business outcomes they're trying to achieve. Is it operational efficiency? Is it a better decision support mechanism? Is it trying to reduce costs? Those are some of the key questions as BAs we can help the organizations with going forward. So I think there's a massive opportunity that's going to take place for business analysts with AI going forward. So next thing we talk about is stakeholder engagement. So in stakeholder engagement, we talk about how do we engage those stakeholders, elicit those requirements, make sure that we have, a smooth transition to this new, new normal, if you like. And then at the same time, how do we, institute analytics, whether it's sentiment analytics, where we're trying to identify, the real time, sentiment from, of the new deployment we're trying to do, or we're trying to be predictive in those analytics. If I did this, how would this work? I'm thinking very much like the business model canvas technique, where we say, okay, we have 9 different categories, and if we make one change here, how does it impact the rest of the organization going forward? So AI can certainly help us come up with some what if scenarios. I find that AI is excellent at what if scenarios, excellent at identifying and coming up with a lot of different use cases in a very short order. And then it's up to you as the BA to determine, okay, what should be the priority? How should I prioritize those use cases and going forward? And if it's okay, I'll answer questions at the end. So I'll just keep moving forward here. Um, so as BAs, one of the things we think about is what are the steps? What is the roadmap for business analysts, right? And and one of the great things I like being working as a BA is when we talk about the 6 questions we always ask for every implementation: the who, the what, the where, the when, the why, and the how. My favorite question is the why, right? And this is what we start with. The first question we should ask ourselves is consolidating the why. Why is the organization looking at AI as a solution? What problems are they trying to solve going forward? And what is the value that they're trying to achieve from an AI transformation? From there, it's about not only data and technology, but it's also a cultural change, and that's what a lot of people are a lot of organizations, I think, are failing to foresee, is saying that, yeah, sure, we have this new technology, we have this new tool available to us, but what change does it really have impact on the culture? There are those among us that are taking the position that AI is there to steal their jobs, or there's concern that AI will diminish my role as a BA, or diminish my role as a data analyst, for instance. And those are real concerns. So how do we address that cultural shift, the paradigm shift that's going to take place? Other things too, as a BA, my recommendation or my position was start small. Just like with any initiative, any new initiative, start small. Start with key metrics that you want to measure. Don't go big, don't go too big too soon, right? And start small and just build that groundswell, going forward. Identify the right technologies. Not every, it's not a one size fit all, even though I'm sure a lot of vendors will like to make you think that. Sometimes you wanna say, well, do I really need Copilot, for instance, or do I really need Gemini, or what's the difference between Claude and OpenAI, or should I just use some sort of custom tool to go forward with it, or maybe open source? We progress through our partners. We network with our partners. We share information. I'm a big advocate of paying it forward. So I think, as part of this exercise tonight is just to demonstrate, saying, we want to share information, share our experience, share our knowledge. And I think that goes without saying when you're within an organization. You can't, gone are the days where you try to keep things close to your chest, and you treat business analysis, as a dark art. And it's really want to be able to be transparent and accountable for all the work that we're doing, going forward. Collect feedback and refine the feedback constantly. So this constant loop that's going in. If you've read the Deming cycle, the plan, do, check, act. This feeds into that approach, that framework very nicely, right? Always collect feedback, refine, and keep reiterating, and it's going. And of course, transform. And this is really what for a successful AI transformation, you got to start small. What are the prerequisites for AI when introducing AI to an organization? Is again, consolidate the why, but also identify what processes you want to tackle. Start small, identify your use cases, identify what kind of infrastructure problems you're dealing with. Do you have a lot of technology debt, for instance? Do you have a lot of unsanitized data that you're dealing with, right? Because data is going to be your Achilles heel when it comes to deployment. If you don't have good data, then automating that is just going to automate garbage, right? You have garbage data, garbage in, garbage out. There's again going back to the idea of a catalyst. I think AI is going to be a catalyst to say, oh, you know what? Before we go forward on this initiatives, we need to clean up our data. We need to tag our data. We need to sanitize it. We need to secure it. We need to make sure it's in a strong, a decent location that we can access it before we can actually see the benefits that AI can bring to us. I mean, again, AI is fantastic at distilling large amounts of data, but if the data is not organized and not structured, not sanitized, then all you're doing is you're automating garbage. So you want to be careful about that for sure. And that's all part of the data cleaning activities that we have to think about. I know it's boring. I know that a lot of organizations, when I deal with them, they always talk about the future state. They says, "Don't tell me where I am. I know where I am. Let's talk about the future state." And I say, "Well, it's like parachuting into a field at night blindfolded. You don't know where you are in the world. You don't know what kind of gaps you're dealing with. You don't know how far it is to get from one location to the next. So without understanding and doing the analysis of the current state, you really don't know how big of a gap you're dealing with when you want to get to the future state. So yes, we can talk about the future state, but at some point we got to talk about the current state, and then identify what those gaps are going forward. And linking data to processes, that goes without saying. And of course, involve your employees, involve the culture that you're dealing with, right? I mean, I work with a lot of large organizations, and like large organizations, it's like a big ship, moves 1 degree at a time, right? They don't happen overnight. So start small, build momentum, and slowly that ship will turn eventually, but it will not happen overnight. So even though the technology changes, we talk about Moore's law, more changes, Moore's law states that technology changes every 18 months, but the organization changes a lot more slowly, right? So, I mean, AI seems to be changing, every few months now. There actually, there's an article I read from the CEO of Microsoft is saying that we're condensing 30 years of innovation into 3. So think about it, that 30 years of innovation. 30 years ago, we were still using rotary dial phones, in some parts of the country. So, I mean, you think about what kind of impact that has culturally on an organization to condense 30 years into 3, and then the organization itself is just not ready to change, right? It's just not there yet, and they have to go through committees, and they have to they have to review it, and if it's a risk adverse organization, then it's gonna take some time, right? So there's lots of challenges ahead of us for sure, but again, when there's challenges, I think there's opportunities. So to dig into a little deeper about the culture shift for AI, we talk about, how do we address some of the employee concerns? What are those concerns we deal with? What are some of the training strategies we have to think about in terms of what kind of personas we're dealing with? And of course, creating an AI, workplace culture. So when we're dealing with AI, I like to think, and this is my position on this, is that we either dealing with fixed mindset leaders or growth mindset leaders. A fixed mindset leader, is, they're binary thinkers, right? They say yes or no, black or white. They're easily frustrated by new scenarios. They're risk adverse. They are any criticism they get or constructive criticism they get, they take it personally. It's very, I mean, I'm being a little overgeneral. I'm overgeneralizing here, but it's we know the type, right? The fixed mindset, the risk adverse. They want to be absolutely 100% convinced this is the right thing to do before we move forward and move off that that decision, as opposed to a growth mindset. Growth mindset leaders, they're technology enthusiasts. They're the early adopters. They they put themselves out there looking for continuous feedback. They're constructive continuous feedback, that is. They're flexible, adaptable, but firm, right? And they're willing to invest the time and effort into new technologies, new approaches, and so on. So, and of course, you get a mix of both, right? Sometimes, we have a leader that is bit of a growth mindset in some regards, but also a fixed mindset in others because they're dealing with some in-house political issues, or just the culture of the organization. So, how do you navigate that as as a BA? And I'm sure as BAs, I'm sure you've come across those different types of personalities. Your job is to try to move them into a growth mindset, so they could take advantage of it to be some of the early adopters in AI. So, we typically talk about, when we're trying to implement anything new, that there's I'm sure you guys have heard the Gartner hype cycle, where there's a trough of disillusionment and so on. But in this case, this is called the Rogers Tech Adoption Curve. This came from Everett Rogers, and it's from his book, from the Diffusion of Innovations. And he states, with any new technology or any new delivery, there's always those innovators, early adopters, and that makes up about, I don't know, 18, less than 20% of the team members out there. So on every team, there's, out of 10 people, there's usually two that the early adopters or the innovators that take the risk, and that that are enthusiastic about the change, and they go through this technology curve. What I haven't shown here is that after early adopters, before the early majority, there's a gap, right? And so if the early adopters and the innovators cannot convince themselves or cannot convince others, especially upper management, that this is the right way to go and this is the opportunity that we need to take advantage of, it gets stalled, it gets delayed, it gets mothballed, shelfware, it gets shelved, essentially. So what I should have actually wrote down on the slide is, should I put a gap there as saying that, how do we get past that gap so we can get an early majority and then late majority, and then finally bring the laggards coming screaming and kicking into the fold going forward. So this is very typical, and it's no different than with AI. So we're seeing with AI, we're seeing some early adopters, we're seeing some innovators, we're getting a lot of early majorities now because it seems like everyone's talking about AI, but there's still some on our team, and we know who they are, that are laggards, that are saying, well, I'm not doing AI, right? I'm concerned about AI because of either security concerns, or I'm concerned about AI because it's going to take my job. It's a matter how you deal with a cultural shift. So quickly, and I can talk about a day on this, on rise of prompt engineering. So it goes back to, if you want better results, ask better questions. And as BAs, we have to be structured in how we ask our questions. There are different frameworks we can choose from. There are different contexts we have to look at. And why, and we'll go in a little demonstration here, but why it's vital for business analysts to have a well-structured, well-defined approach when you prompt, when you put those prompts together. And then we'll give you some examples of what some well-crafted prompts look like. Before we do that, though, I like to just level set and get on some ideas around, and just put it out there about what are some of the AI definitions out there. So when we talk about ChatGPT, well, it was actually generative AI. So what does Gen AI actually stand for? So Gen AI is basically generating new content, right? So Gen AI is generating new content, text, images, audio, based on patterns learned from existing data, based on models, right? And they all learns from different types of models. ChatGPT stands for generative pre-trained transformer, right? It transforms the text, transforms the content, and it's a chat. So if you go on Claude, or if you go on Gemini, you go on OpenAI or Copilot, you have a little chat box, right? Chat dialog box, right? And you type in your prompt, and it spits out a response. And that's a very simple, that's a very straightforward definition of what ChatGPT is. Prompt tuning is refining the prompts. So rather than just accepting the first response you get, be constructive, be analytical, be critical on what response you're looking for. So it's refining the wording, refining the structure, using the right framework, or maybe using a framework when we look at refining our prompts. Zero shot prompting, which I find a lot of people end up doing, is just putting like a Google search, right? They put a asking AI to complete a task without any context, without any examples whatsoever. And the responses, you get a variety of responses, not always the ones you're looking for. So that's what we call zero-shot prompting. You want better prompts, you want better results, ask better questions. So few-shot prompting is actually providing a few examples. So I put in my prompt, but okay, this is what I'm looking for. I want this in a table format. I want this less than 300 words. Here are some examples I'm looking for. A few-shot prompting might be, this is a positive response, negative response example. This is a neutral response example, that sort of thing. Chain of thought is step by step. I want you to approach this problem using these sequence of steps. Step 1, do this. Step 2, think about this. Step 3, analyze this. So chain of prompt is solving a complex problem, but instructing it how you want it to analyze the problem going forward in a step-by-step process. And RAG is another one, is that if you're dealing with a very specific data set, it's great for real-time retrieval. I'm thinking financial data, for instance, of a company, for instance. RAG would be an excellent example of that. So use retrieval augmented generation to go through your finances, or your corporate finances. If you have a proprietary model that's protected, and just be able to retrieve that information in real time at a moment's notice. I know JP Morgan has started doing that. A number of financial banks have started doing that. It's quite interesting to see. So there are a number of frameworks to work from. I typically use the CLEAR framework, but there's Focus, there's the race car framework. Everyone has a mnemonic to choose from. CLEAR is fairly straightforward. Basically, put in a context, right? What are you trying to do? The company X is trying to develop new AI governance policies. The role, act as an experienced, aggressive, growth-minded executive specializing in financial regulations, because your role will determine what kind of response you get. Act as an experienced AI or experienced, business analyst with 30 years of experience that has knowledge of the BA/BOK, but also has knowledge of all sorts of compliance like ISO or NIST and that sort of thing. Provide some examples of what you're looking for. So you're starting to put some definition around the response you're looking for. What's your aim? What's your goal? What's your objective, right? Draft a high-level AI policy ensuring compliance with privacy laws, right? List 3 regulatory requirements. That's your task. And then expectations, write this in a formal tone. I usually, say in a professional manner, confident, formal tone, less than 300 words. One thing I forgot to mention is that there's a concept of negative prompting. So it's not only about chain of thought or few shot prompting, but you also want to put in what I would refer to as negative prompts. Negative prompts put some boundaries. Just like with when you do use cases or you do scoping documents, for instance, good boundaries make good projects. Well, negative prompting is establishing those negative prompts, those boundaries, those constraints. Don't go beyond. I put in my prompt and says this has to be below less than 500 words, or this has to be less than 3 paragraphs, or do this in 1 sentence. Right? That's a negative prompt. So you want it to make sure that it responds to you in a very specific container. That you're trying to encapsulate that in. So negative prompting is actually very useful as BAs. As an example, here's another example of a CLEAR. So this is an example of, you want to, let's say you've been hired as a BA and your role is to identify, what are some of the issues or some of the pitfalls, some of the gotchas when we do an AI implementation. So you can read through it. The context is to integrate, implement AI into our operations. Your role is a strategy consultant, AI strategy consultant with deep expertise and successfully guiding senior executives. Some of these are the examples you're looking for. Provide clear examples on typical misconceptions executives have regarding AI implementation, hidden organizational challenges, hidden costs involved, strategic, technical, security, cultural barriers you have to deal with. What's your aim? What's your task? And of course, what are the expectations? going forward. The expectations would be deliver your findings clearly. And then what would happen is that I would use this prompt, and I'm going to show you right now. I would use this prompt for, and I thought I had this here. Give me a second. Oh, wrong one. Sorry. I would use this prompt and I would show you, for instance, what that looks like. So here's an example of an output of this prompt using OpenAI. I asked it to be in a tabular format, hidden costs associated with the implementation. It broke it down for me. It also identified specific factors limiting AI initiative success, what some of the issues you have to look at from both a strategic, tactical, security, and cultural view, and then some of the practical recommendations. And this is OpenAI. Then I use the same prompt just to test the different models. I used Gemini, came up with different models. And what I liked about Gemini is that it actually says, okay, because I didn't specify the company, it didn't specify my company or someone else's company, so it didn't have any context to work with, and it doesn't know what the company does, but it chose an example for me. So did that. It actually broke it down by actual underlying obstacles, what are the hidden costs, potential barriers. So very similar to what OpenAI did, but just a little bit of a tweak, right? And I can export this to Sheets if I wanted to. It actually went into a little more detail on the hidden costs associated with AI implementation. So the point I'm trying to make here is don't just use one tool. You have a number of tools available to you, a lot of them for free. And depending on what you're looking for, depending if it's, if you're doing a deep analysis, deep research, I would say, Gemini is great for that. Perplexity is great for that. If you're doing, general AI stuff, I mean, my go-to has always been OpenAI. But if you want to do something, Claude is great for this too. And this is another example of Claude. Here's the same prompt, and it actually gave some misconceptions and actual challenges. It actually had some interesting insights that I didn't think about before, that OpenAI didn't think about before as well. So it's important as BAs, again, part of this critical thinking is be familiar with some of the tools available to you. Like it's more than just OpenAI. You've got Claude, you got Gemini, you got Perplexity, you've got Copilot, a number of tools available to you, and it does require a little bit of time to get familiar with them. But you'll appreciate the results you get. What are some of the hidden costs? Some things that the other two didn't come up with. Such as talent or change management, and some of the barriers. And actually, what I liked about this one with Claude is that it actually broke it down with some of the key obstacles and what are the impact. Was strategically, in OpenAI, it just had one line, but Claude actually broke it down by three. They had a minimum three every category. So I thought that was quite good. And then some recommendations how to bridge the gap, and I thought that was quite useful. Just being sensitive to the time. I know we got about 10 more minutes here. So ethical AI and responsible governance. Why ethics are important. That goes without saying. I think we as BAs, we always have to make sure that we're providing good value to our clients, good value to our teams. As BAs, we have to be transparent and accountable of the work. We have to be unbiased, objective in our approach. And what are some of the frameworks? So when we look at this, one thing that every BA should be aware of is that AI will hallucinate. We call them AI hallucinations. AI, by its very nature, is there to try to impress you, right? And you really need to be objective, and you really need to be aware of this confirmation bias. You don't want to create an echo chamber. You want to make sure that you challenge yourself, challenge the results, challenge AI. That's where the critical thinking comes into place. And that's where I think as BAs, I think this is where we can excel at. I think, we can certainly excel at challenging the norm, challenging the responses we get, and really get into a lot more detail. Because the risk that I see is that a lot of team members are throwing the question into like OpenAI and getting the response and just cut and pasting the response or copy and pasting the response. And there's no thinking, there's no critical thinking taking place. There's no refinement, there's no concerns, there's no validation of whether that information is correct or not. So if you're biased to begin with, which we all are at some level, then it will and I've done this. I've done this on purpose, where I've actually taken a position on an argument, and I've used OpenAI to take that position and help me validate my position on that argument or that position, and to make a convincing case against the person I'm trying to convince that this is the right way to do things. So I'm fully cognizant that I am very biased when it comes to some of the prompts I throw in there. But you have to be aware of that. You have to use your emotional intelligence. Ethics, AI. I mean, we can go into a really deep dive on this. There's lots of concerns about ethics, lots of concern about privacy. UNESCO, in Europe they have the GDPR, they have all sorts of the AI Act that's coming out in Europe these days. It's about protecting your data privacy, your data as an organization, to make sure you're not you don't put yourself as a risk. You want to make sure that you're not there's concerns now with a lot of these Gen AI solutions that are doing keystroke monitoring. So even though they say that they're not using your data, but they're actually tracking your keystrokes, there's from a cybersecurity perspective, there's lots of concerns there. So guidelines on monitoring and analysis, environmental protection. Obviously, there's concerns about the environmental impact that these data centers have. Until recently with DeepSeek, I thought that was very interesting, where they announced the $500 billion of investment, and then a week later, the tools came out. They're saying, well, we could probably do the same thing for about a fraction of the cost, fraction of the environmental impact. So it's evolving quickly. There's lots of changes that are taking place. So, and again, I don't want to be sensitive to the time. We've got about 7 more minutes here. Measuring and optimizing AI success. It's not just about the KPIs. It's not just about ROI. One of my favorite approaches is to look at it from an OKR, which is objectives and key results. So I typically, when I'm working as a BA or as a project executive, I set myself some objectives and key results. So I don't go into the deep dive just yet about trying to measure the key performance indicators. I think about what are my objectives and what are the key results I'm going to measure against those objectives. And then I talk about what are the KPIs, what are some of the key performance indicators I have to look at. And if you start with that approach, you'll find that you do it from a macro level, from a strategic level, saying, okay, 12 months from now, I want to achieve this. These are the key results. And then we start doing a deep dive on, okay, well, what are some of the key performance indicators I want to look for? What are the quantifiable metrics, my success metrics, if you will, to evaluate the success of the activities against those objectives, against those key results I'm looking for. What that looks like is that there are a number of areas that I can focus on for objectives and key results and key performance indicators. And the great thing about AI is that it could be used in a number of different fields, a number of different areas within the business. The disadvantage or the challenge we have with AI is that it can be used in almost every industry right now, and it's tough to pick where we want to prioritize our efforts. Right? It's it's like having a buffet. You have this great choice in front of you, but you don't know what you want to start with first. Right? You're kind of looking at the buffet. At least I am anyway. Looking at the buffet, and I got this massive buffet, fantastic, all sorts of choices to choose from. I just don't know where to start, and that goes back to the data overload, right? And so as BAs, we need to help the business prioritize their work, help the business prioritize their implementation, identify what the key outcomes are, how to identify their objectives, their key results, and then identify the KPIs going forward. So. There's a lot of choices and a lot of opportunities ahead of us with AI. The challenges we have with AI, lack of skills, that goes without saying. I mean, it seems like we're on this trend where we're drinking from a fire hose these days. Lots of discussions around AI. Where do we start with? And we're inundated with data. every day about it, and it's tough to stay on top of it. And everybody seems to be offering courses or training on AI, which is great. But again, you don't know what choice I should take going forward. Should I go with a vendor with Microsoft, or should I go with something like Gemini? Gemini has some great courses, for instance. Or Maven is another one. Maven is another one. Or LinkedIn Learning is another one too, right? High costs, right? What is the cost of licensing? You know, if I wanted to implement AI within an organization, what am I looking at? What's my ROI? What's my return on investment when I implement this? Inadequate tools. And this is my position. I find that I will use Copilot, and I will try to do a prompt on Copilot. I don't get the results I'm looking for. I take the same prompt, I throw it into like OpenAI, for instance, and I get the results I'm looking for, even though they're supposed to be the same model. And I find that Microsoft seems to be either throttling it back, or it's great for integration, but it depends what you're trying to do, right? So I play around with different models based on what I'm looking for. So sometimes the tools, depending on the model I'm using for, is not the results I'm looking for. Again, going back to critical thinking. So then I would use other models, other tools, and try to see if they get different results. Complex projects, people try to take on too much. They bite off more than they can chew, and that's an issue, right? Start small. High data complexity. You're dealing with a lot of data elements, and if that data is not cleaned or sanitized, and it's very complex, you're going to be stuck, 100%. And the confidence is, companies are struggling to assure that AI can act responsibly, that it's not about just cutting jobs. It's not about, it's about what is the future vision? What is the 5-year, vision for AI? And not just simply trying to cut the bottom line and trying to make people work harder and smarter without really, helping them, realize, what AI can do for them is actually maybe help improve their work-life balance going forward. So that's a challenge. As we wrap up here on our presentation, a couple of thoughts I want to leave you with. One is I'm a big believer in the course Cotter's change model. If you don't know it as a BA, I encourage you to take a look at it. There's all sorts of different change models. I've used Cotter in the past. Cotter is a great way because the first step it talks about is creating a sense of urgency, right? So if you're not implementing AI now, how do I, as a BA, help encourage that sense of urgency? How do I encourage? Because we know that if we're not an early adopter, we certainly don't want to be a laggard, right? And so, how do I, in that curve we're talking about, how do I encourage my team members to be early adopters, to be, those innovators going forward, or maybe the early majority? Because we certainly don't want to be behind on this AI trend that we're seeing. And then they talk about all the different stages through a change management process, and this is a cultural shift. Getting the leaders to buy into it, get a coalition, get an idea on this, develop a vision, what you want for AI, what's your strategy, communicate that vision, clearly, and empower the employees to participate in the change. Quick wins, look for those small results, and of course, stimulate the change and sustain the change, right? Because you don't want to have where we bought, let's say we bought 1,000, Copilot licenses, and it just becomes shelfware, or half of them use it, half of them don't, and we're not seeing the return on investment, because those Copilot licenses are not cheap, by the way, right? Or any one of the licenses, that it gets quite expensive. They're actually OpenAI now is talking about using agents now that cost $20,000 a month, right? So that there has to be an ROI on that. There has to be value in investing in an agent that's going to cost $20,000 a month for an organization. So we have to be very clear on that. So your call to action tonight, after listening to me, thank you very much, is I hope and encourage you, my position is I want to encourage you to embrace AI as an essential skill for BA to improve your strategic decision making and career advancement. Obviously, I think by showing up tonight, you're committed to continuous learning. I applaud you. That's fantastic, and help lead your organization's AI transformation journey, right? And a little quote in the bottom there: "Great prompts lead to great insights." And we're saying, oh, I apologize. I must have clicked on the wrong slide. I did. I apologize. There we go. And I want to thank you very much. How am I doing? I think that was 1 minute over. Travis, how am I doing there?
Oh, you're spot on.
I
Oh,
was,
Patrick.
I was when I was putting this together. I think I had 40 slides to start with, and I had to prune it down to 26. So I'll give you some examples. So there's a QR code if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn. I encourage you to do that. There's also some resources. So some takeaways tonight. If you have a phone, you want to scan the QR code. Steve, I'll be happy to share this with you. I've got some resources, some courses to take on prompting. I've actually given some examples of prompts that I've used in the past. So this is an ongoing thing. This is an iterative process going forward. I'm a big advocate of paying it forward. But I want to open up the floor if there's any questions. And I hope your chapter got some good information out of this.
Definitely, yeah. Do you guys want to come off mute, ask a question, or throw it in the chat? Either way.
Look at the chat. I see lots of chat here. There we go. Oh, superhuman AI. Yes, thank you very much. That's from Karen Nunes.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
So I'm wondering, how can BAs take advantage of AI and ChatGPT if their organization forbids it?
That's an excellent question. So I work for a very not a restrictive government, but a very restrictive environment. And we have the same thing. We have the same concerns about data leakage. Our security folks have adamantly told everyone that don't use OpenAI to do your analysis. They're trying to implement Copilot. There are a number of initiatives that you could take a look at. I mean, I would take a look at if you're working for government, if they have some initiatives you want to look at. I'm always taking a very conservative approach when it comes to AI, and especially with my clients' data. I will never post anything that's sensitive. I will never ask anything that's sensitive, and that's something that's due. But at the same time, too, I'll use on my phone, like on my personal phone, for instance, if I'm in a conversation with somebody or I'm texting somebody, I say, like, you know what, AI, I'm having this discussion with somebody, I'll talk to it and it will respond back and say, oh, you should be thinking about this, or have you thought about these three, points going forward? So I'll do that during the day, and I want to make sure it's pretty generic. I want to make sure I'm clear on that. Because I don't want to be posting, taking sensitive information like a sales report, for instance, internal sales report, and post it on ChatGPT. Because as soon as it goes to ChatGPT, even though you say don't share my data, what guarantee do you have, right? And that's always a concern, right? Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you. It's been a great presentation. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. I'm
Yeah.
glad you found it useful.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. It's been wonderful. One of those phrases that stood out was, "We are the thought leaders, and AI is the thought partner."
Yep.
That's a good one for me to think about. Is I need to tell it what to do so that it can help me along. So
Absolutely.
yeah, we enjoyed having you here tonight. I think Steve might take it over right now to.
Stop sharing my screen. There we go.
All right, let me share mine. I listened to an event last year where the speaker called AI augmented intelligence, where it's taking your data, it's taking the data and just it's helping you with it as long as you still have to validate the data.
Yeah. I mean, you never really give up control. I mean, you can't give up control. I mean, can you imagine if you're an insurance company, for instance, and you make a bad call because your AI, hallucinated, and you just simply, cut and paste or copy and paste the response to a claimant, to someone there, and was the wrong call. who's responsible? It's not the AI's fault. It's your fault, right? You ultimately are responsible for that response. So you have to be the human in the loop. You have to be taking accountability for the effort. I mean, you can use AI. Let's say you use AI like 95% of the time. That's no problem. But the 5%, that's critical. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I use it too on my phone for like super general questions, like help with SQL queries, or what's wrong with this Excel formula, without putting in any like customer data or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very useful. I mean, I in the book, The AI Driven Leader, that the one that you're raffling off tonight, they talk about the 3 different personas. One's an interviewer, one's a communicator, the other one is a challenger. And I find the challenger really helpful as a persona, right? Challenge my thoughts, challenge my bias. As a BA, you want to be objective, and you want to, especially if you're doing a presentation to a maybe not so friendly group of people. As a BA, sometimes you have to, you give them not bad news. I'm sure every BA has been in that position. So you want to prepare yourself for that meeting. So, act as an aggressive, assertive, project manager. What kind of questions I should be asking for it, then have that dialogue so you can actually prepare yourself for that very prickly conversation you might have with a PM or a leader or whatever the case might be, right?
Yeah.
And I find it very helpful.
Cool. Last call for any questions. Otherwise, jump on menti.com, plug in that code, and we'll start the quiz here in just a second. There's 5 questions. You get points for getting it right, and you get points for answering it quickly. And then at the end of that, there's a $25 Amazon gift card for the quiz, and then we'll do 2 raffles, one for another gift card and then one for the book. Well, I'm going to go ahead and start this with it. 21. So we have 39 people still on. We'll give it just a second. You can still join even after the first question. So one more. Okay, let's get started.
Does that come with Menti? The music?
Yeah.
Really?
The music, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like 2 other choices, and they're even worse.
That's awesome.
All right.
Price is right.
Yes.
Come on down.
Another typo.
I see Kiba very excited.
Yep.
Awesome. Helen, I'm so glad you were able to join us tonight.
I'm up past my bedtime, but that's okay. It's worth it.
Absolutely.
That's my bedtime too, and I'm on the West Coast.
There you go.
know where that picture came from. All right, here we go for the results. All right, Pandu. All right, so here's a copy of the book. Bring over Wheel of Names.
So are you sharing your screen?
Did I stop sharing my screen?
Did.
No, I still see it.
I
Oh.
see the
See it?
wheel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that must be me then.
All right, so the first spin will be for a $25 Amazon gift card. Right, on. Okay.
That's
And-
fantastic. What a great idea.
And then here we go for the book. Oh. Heather,
There you go, Heather. Congratulations.
So Heather, I'll reach out to you, or you can reach out to me with your address so that they can mail you a copy of this book.
Patrick, I don't remember. Was this an autograph copy?
This is an autographed copy.
Yes.
So Jeff Woods, I reached out to the author after we spoke, Steve, and I said, I'm promoting your book. Would you be, can we? And he offered to autograph it. So I thought that was brilliant.
Cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, if you ever get a chance, it's a really good book too. He's got some really good insights. He talks about the thought leader. He talks about the thought partner. He's got lots of experience around this and some really good ideas around prompts as well. And he's got a website called the AIleadership.com. And I would take a look at it. He's got some really interesting ideas about how to approach AI.